So many anglers spend their entire career or a good chunk of their career trying to make the Bassmaster Elite Series. And some of them go on to great things, have big rookie seasons. Everything goes as planned, but sometimes it doesn't go as planned. And what do you do when your rookie season goes a little worse than expected? And how do you resolve that and go forward? And so we're going to bring a guest here, and we're going to talk about that. Welcome, John. How's it going?
Great, man. Thanks for the softballs about saying how it didn't go quite as I planned my rookie year. That's the understatement of the century in the fishing world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think John Soukup, for those who don't know, joined us tonight. Actually, a return guest. It was probably about 2 years ago, the first time I think I had you on, and I think you had just coming off your first season on the MPFL and going into fishing all 9 of the opens right before you went into the fishing all the opens. I think. Does that sound right?
That sounds right, man. But even greater than that, as far as you and
Yeah.
it's always special to see you because we have a connection where we parked right next to each other. The boat draws next to each other, however you say it, at the Bass Nation National Championship. I don't remember what year that was
I think it
that
was.
we did that, but I know you have a better memory than I do, so you'll probably know exactly when it was.
Yeah, 2014. That was the one Paul
14.
Mueller won.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's neat. It's always really neat when you experience the growth of going through the grassroots program all the way up to the top level. But when you have a memory that you get to share with somebody else who's grown in the fishing world, when I say grow in the fishing world, we all have an amazing passion for fishing, for little green fish, chasing them around, and to find someone that's like minded like that, that you can share some growth, if you will, and it's even more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We were I don't know. Yeah, it seems like almost seems long. I mean, I was gonna say it's like 9 years ago, but almost feels longer. I usually don't say that the time flies, but it actually feels like longer than that ago at that point. I don't know.
I know I had a lot more hair on my head, and I think you had a lot less lower units, if I remember right, or the not lower units, bottom of the boat.
The lower unit was actually the 6 foot gash I put in the bottom of my dad's 19
Yeah,
foot Triton at the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, so we've got to know each other over the years. Yeah, because we were boatyard compadres, I guess. At that one, neither one of us had the tournament we wanted to have. Congratulations to Paul Mueller. That was his springboard into the elites, and honestly, if I remember correctly, Paul Mueller didn't come out of the gate super hot in his elite series first couple of years, and I think he was probably at some point where he was kind of like, "Am I coming back? Am I not?" And he's kind of now turned the corner, and he's got a couple blue trophies, and he's an established veteran. So that's
You
kind of
know,
interesting
uh,
segue there into the
back
French
into the
finance.
darkness. So Paul and I talked this winter on the phone, and I didn't ask him about his rookie year. I mean, it'd be interesting to find out. I really do believe that nobody has had as bad of a year, and I'm a statistical guy. I love stats. It helps me function in life. I had as bad of a year as I had in the first year, and then come back and like become a Gerald Swindle. I don't think it's actually ever happened. So I know that the statistics are way against me. And so I got it written right up there. That's why I feel like I am the greatest underdog in Elite Series history, man. Um, so I've got my work cut out for me. I've got to be a different fisherman than I was last year, and so there is a lot that goes along with that because you don't want to overcorrect, but you also want to make corrections. So balancing that out, finding out where you're at in your personal life, in your work life, um, all these things, affect you when it comes to being on the water. Last year was a super tough year for me outside on being on the water, and if I didn't catch fish for like 5 minutes, my mind was off into Never Never Land dealing with issues and stuff of that nature. So, um, but back to Paul Mueller, the conversation with him, um, he did tell me that really the only thing that he's chasing right now in the elites, he's accomplished everything he wants is to win a classic. That's all he wants right now. That's a neat place to be. That would be. I would love for 5 years from now we have another podcast and I have that. And if I ever get to that point where I'm like, all I want is a classic, I've already made it. Then, you know, it's weird to be so close to work your entire life to have an opportunity to fish at this level, and you make it there, and yet you're so far away. Like I'm so close, yet I'm so far away. It's a really
Absolutely.
odd feeling.
So for people that aren't in the stats and don't know, right? So you started out your rookie year with 100th place finish on the
Triple
Elite
digits.
Series, which I think there's only supposed to be 100, but with medical and legend exemptions, there was 104. So honestly, from an average standpoint, there's not
Mm,
much worse that you can put up for next year, which means
mm,
basically you have to be, all the formulas, whatever, you have to be in the top 70, because if you're in the top
mhm.
70, that saves you, right? So
Yeah,
that's the minimum threshold for next year. Like anything 71st or below, you're almost certainly not requalifying for your third year.
yeah, that's how it works. A lot of people want to they want to know how it works exactly. They think you get a free year in year one, and it's not necessarily a free year. You're
Not
just
free. You
safe.
just can't
Yeah, you just can't get out, but it still goes against you for your lifetime average. So after year two, which next year is my year two, I'm open for being cut. And what happens is in the top 70, so 70th place, like literally 70th place, which I think that was Frank Talley this year, or above, you're safe. You have another year to continue. So as long as I continue finishing 70th or above, I'm good. And I know a lot of people think, oh, well, that's, you should be able to do that. But, we can talk about what that actually means after this. But um, everybody from 71st down to that 100th or 103 or whatever, exemption spot, they then in turn get judged based off of their lifetime average. And for every 5 years you fish, you get a drop of score for every 5 years. So,
Yeah. And so obviously, we kind of talked last week a little bit, setting this show up and things, but obviously 70th is like the bare minimum, but obviously you'd like to get a lot higher than 70th so that you're not right back. Because if you finish 70th, you're literally do or die again in year three because you got nothing to average. Like, right? If you go 100th, 70th, and you're 71st in your third year, you're gone. You like, so
mhm.
you almost need to put up some 30, 40, 50s to start getting that average where you're not looking over your shoulder the whole time.
Oh man, qualifying um, for the classic would be 100% be the goal. And
Yeah.
if I can have an above 50 average for the next 4 years and make it, then that fifth year that I'm there, I can forget about this 100th year season because that score will be dropped, and I'll basically become a new man on the Elite Series.
Yeah, absolutely. I just
For sure.
don't want to forget too far. Tonight's HellaBass Live is presented by Arsenal Fishing and boosted by Powerhouse Lithium. Don't want to forget about that. People supporting the show. We just got right into it and just started talking fishing and forgot for a second there.
Yeah, yeah.
Few comments here. Let's see here.
I
Yeah,
wonder if I can. Okay.
yeah. Paul actually, yeah, that was the
Yeah,
Bass Nation. He qualified for that classic. He didn't qualify early on for the classic through the elites. Uh,
yeah. I don't think that that's. Is it still a record? Is it still the record bag?
it might be
I
the
think it
one day.
one
The
day. Yeah,
one
one
day.
day record
Yeah,
bag.
maybe.
That was a Gunnersville grass chatterbait
Yep. And he
sack.
only caught like 3 or 4 small keepers on day one, and he ended up like losing the classic by like a pound. So if he just would have caught one
Yeah,
more 15-incher
yeah,
on day one, he would have won that
yeah.
classic. Yeah.
Man, we don't let me talk over you if you had some more stuff to share, but based off of some of our conversation that we had, it's a rare thing to look back. It's an odd thing, I guess you should say, to look back and to realize, man, with such a bad year I had, and man, I felt like the worst year. I did not fish like I was myself. I was kind of an out of body fishing experience, if you will. Lots of things that I need to get control of and fish differently. A lot of mistakes that I made mentally that I knew I was making them. You know what I mean? I knew I was making them. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't even. I had already learned that lesson. Don't fish that way. Um, with all that being said, at the end of the season, I look back at my stats, and I was only 20 points per event away from being in that 70th place spot. And that's quite a bit. But with all that being said, three of the events I was 1 pound away from being in the top 50, and two others I was 3 pounds away. And we're talking about a couple day events from being that. So I was really on the verge while I was fishing at the worst I've ever fished in my life. So I know that the potential is there. We got to turn quite a few things around. But the unique thing that's about this is I was curious. I said, well, because just like through the thought process that you had, okay, 70th is good, but 40th is way better. So what is the difference between that 70th place cut and then making a classic cut in 40th place? And do you have any idea? I don't know if I shared this with you or not. Do you know what that spread per event is from 70th place to 40th place?
Probably like 20 points an event or so. Or
It's
something like
only 10.
Hmm.
And you think about the fine line, and I've talked to a lot of people throughout the year and talking about how tight the elites are getting and how good they are from the bottom to the top. And it becomes a lot like NASCAR, man. Like these guys that are finishing, yeah, they're always winning the race, but they're only seconds ahead about the guy that's in the back. It's so tight. So the difference next year between me qualifying for the classic and getting cut off the elites is going to be about a 10-point average per event. So every fish, every ounce is going to count more than anything. And that's the mentality that I took on after the elites were over, that I started to reapply back to my fishing that I'd gotten away from. And I decided to jump in the remainder opens for the year to try to get back on track fishing with that mentality. And you know, that mentality, I felt like I was fishing again as myself again. And I'm really glad that I spent that time to first that there was opportunity to fish the opens and get in, but just get more reps on the water, you know.
So I think this is the kind of a lot of people a little bit to get into it. And this hunter's question here, how does he catch himself good in the opens and struggle in the elites? And so it's interesting, right? Because you came off essentially dominating upper echelon of the MPFL, which in the beginning it wasn't the most stacked field in the wheel, but you were taking care of business, putting up trophies, winning cash and checks every event. You go into the opens, you take care of business, you make the elites. At the end of the elite season, you get two top tens in opens, and then the elites sandwiched in the middle. And how does it go so awry? Right? I guess that, and you're probably asking yourself the same question.
Well, kind of and kind of not. So I was asked by one of the McKinney boys, and I can't remember the difference. And if it's Tristan, I think Tristan McKinney is the taller of the two that didn't qualify. He asked me in the lock. I'm sorry.
Sounds right.
Yeah, he asked me in the lock, and he was super polite about it. There was a bunch of people in there, and he said, "Hey, man, I, why is it that you come into these opens and do so well, and yet, you know, he was kind of being nice and polite about it, but basically, but you do horrible in the elites." And I was about to make an excuse. I really was, and I have plenty of excuses, hardships from the beginning of the year through the elites. A lot of stuff. I mean, a huge list. Maybe we talk about it, maybe we don't. Of events that occurred that just had my mind somewhere else, um, and my heart too. Beyond that, but then I stopped and I thought, you know what? There is a difference, and the main difference is, and I told him, I said, you know, when I jump in an open, I don't think about anybody I'm fishing against. I don't even care. Like, oh, there's Greg Hackney. I think it's cool, but I don't think about him at all. All I'm thinking about the fish. I'm at peace. I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy the opens. I enjoy the grind. I enjoy all those boats out there. I don't know what it is about it. It just reminds me more of what I'd always dreamed about doing, was being a part of something of that. So I feel at home. Now, when the feeling that I had when I was on the elites this last year was the complete opposite. Man, I don't know. I was just thinking about everybody else and anything else besides, you know, just finding the fish. And um, I'm going to try to do my best to hone that same mentality into the elites. I don't think it's just as easy said than done, but I think there's some precautionary things in advance and some preparation things and some emotional, mental things that go into that I need to just, you know, be self aware and keep myself. Um, one, I fish a lot better when I'm having fun. Make sure that I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and that even goes down to make sure that I'm fishing the way that I enjoy to fish. I mean, just from top end to bottom. I need this could be my last season on the elites. It very well could be. And you know, it's a dream of mine. I never thought I was even going to have this opportunity 20 years ago. That and my first word was fish. I grew up. That's all I wanted to do when I was a kid. Fish, 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 fish. So to have this opportunity and not be enjoying myself is really, honestly, it's a sad thing. And shame on me for being that way. And I don't want that to be my last year in the elites. If this next year is my last year, I want to start the year having conversations with HellaBass, enjoying bass fishing, talking about all things. Because believe it or not, whatever people said on the internet, I can still catch a dang green fish, man. I may be in place 100, but you better watch out if I come up to your local jackpot. I mean, that's just the way it is. And that is a difference on the elites, guys. I mean, I 100% when I'm in the opens, I give everybody their praise. I clap and I support and I tell everybody how great they are as a fisherman. And we mean it. But if you haven't been there, don't believe the hype when they say, "Hey, these guys at all these guys at the lower level are the same as the elites," because it's just flat not the truth. There are guys, portions of guys, one percenters at that lower level that can make it at the top level if given the opportunity, but they still have to be trained. They have to be ready. Like they can't. There's very few that can just jump on and start whooping tail. Very, very few percentage wise. The guys at the elite level on the elites that are there right now are the greatest fishermen that you'll ever meet, and that is just a fact. I did not fish that bad a lot of time on my weights. The elite guys just fish that good, and they kick the snot out of me. And I really wasn't prepared for the fact that thinking, oh well, I just need to beat 1 and 2 guys, and I'll be in top 50 and get $10,000 check and go home. And dude, there just is no weakness in those guys. So
This is a good point here. Mark Edwards brings up David Williams, phenomenal Bassmaster Opens record. Every time he goes back, he literally it seems like he pretty much wins the AOY in a division and comes back to the elites and struggles in the elite series. So that's kind of an interesting point by Mark. So it's not completely unheard of.
Yeah, and I love David Williams. Man, he's like one of the greatest guys. Super quiet, humble guy, man of faith. Like just would do no wrong to anybody. If there's somebody to root for when he was, I mean, that was last year was his last year. He would have been one of them to root for. And I think that if he was sitting here with us, he may say something similar to the mindset thing of how when he was at the regional level, he didn't think about anybody else. I think that he'd probably say the same thing.
So one of the things people seem to pick up on, whether it was your videos or Hallman's videos, didn't like you said, didn't seem like you guys were having a ton of fun towards the end of the year. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think you guys were kind of like feeding off each other in a negative way, or do you guys how was? I mean, obviously you guys are good buddies and that kind of stuff, but like, maybe speak on that a little bit.
Man, that's a hard one because if I have any regrets, the biggest regret that I have last year was that I couldn't have been more of a help to my buddy Brad, and that ended up being his last season. So that's kind of almost an emotional question for me because I'm all in on Brad. I'm all in to help him on everything I could, and to think that the things that I had going on in my life or the negativity that was surrounding me could have negatively impacted him, and surely it did. That sucks, man. That's almost something I can't even swallow to think about, to be honest with you. So,
All right.
But our conversations were uplifting with each other. I don't think we ever tried to discourage each other, even when we were dealing with our stuff. Bradley was going through some stuff too that was off the water. That he told me early in the season, mid-season, that this was going to be his last year. So it wasn't a decision that he just made at the end of the season. He knew it already, and
At least it was already thinking, like he was running those scenarios, and like he's like, if this doesn't, yeah.
And I've never Bradley's such a man of his word that when he spoke it out loud the first time he said it, my only response was, well, man, let's try to end the season, have as much fun as possible, and maybe lightning will strike for you. I'll change your mind. Like I don't think there was any talking him out of that. Like his decision had kind of been made, and so yeah.
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 Well, I think everybody's like super invested, and there was a lot of people that were kind of shocked when he decided to hang it up. But it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, he's not done fishing; he's going to do some cool things, and he'll figure out something. And he'll be around for
Well,
sure.
Bradley's about as great as man as he is a fisherman. Like he's got a family of 4 kids and a wife, and they got. I mean, their kids are all at that age. One daughter went off to college this year, like to an art school, and like, he's got a son that's getting at that age where he's playing football, and I think that Bradley's gonna find something that he has a passion for OU football. He'll find something. He'll bounce back around. We'll see him doing something, but he might explore something outside of the fishing world too. He might need that for himself as a person.
Yeah,
And
I've had him on a couple times and absolutely awesome guest. And like we'd talk for 2 hours live and then we'd sit there and talk for an hour afterwards. So yeah, he's one of the most down to earth guys to hang out with and talk fishing with, and anything else. Yeah.
one thing I got, I think I got to speak to is the understanding from those on the outside looking in of the exhaustion that it takes to just qualify for the elites, and how many years and how much money and how much time and how much effort that it took for Bradley to get back on the elites. Man, sometimes it almost feels like, hey, it'd be better to give those guys a year break to just get their breath back underneath them and come out fight. It's like you fight the biggest, enemy you've ever had, and then it's like, hey, congratulations. I know you're whooped, but you got an event tomorrow against 100 of those biggest enemies you ever. And that's really what it's like. It really is, especially when you're qualifying like Bradley and I did for the very last open event. You qualify and they're like, hey, no limit or no information rule. And by the way, your deposits are basically due next week. I mean, so you don't have that much time to mentally get refreshed from the effort that it took to qualify. And hey, no one's I'm not asking, I'm not asking for no sympathy or anything like that. It's just, we're just talking about what it is and why something like that can happen. The burnout can happen, why it can happen.
And it goes so late in the season because you guys end up both being so late in the year, right? Because he ended up winning the Central Opens in the last event, and you end up taking the last spot in the overall. I think is how it shook out in the last event. You guys, went and had dinner and had Panger ride and bitch in between you and across the lake, but then it was like, hey, great, celebrate that one night, but now you got like 60 days to get everything ready for Florida.
Yeah, man, and to think about how fast it's weird to think about how fast like the jealousies and stuff get kicked in. Like, this isn't a conversation that's ever been talked about publicly, but I'm going to talk about it. Like Bradley, so Bradley, I, and Matt Pangrak, we go to the stump. We're going to celebrate. What coolest way to like qualify for the elites and like celebration? But we got to go to the stump, and so all the fishermen are there. We're going to go have a steak, and all these fishermen are there from the opens. Well, the way it works is until you've officially been notified, you're not a part of the elites, and therefore you can technically get info. All right. These are technicalities. Now, I had done the math in my head and I knew I had qualified, but because it was that last place, they waited. Now, Bradley had qualified, they'd notified him, but there was about a 30-minute to an hour window there where I was waiting for Hank's phone call to confirm what I already knew that I was in. So technically, during this time frame, I could have been receiving all sorts of waypoints, and I just don't know anybody for anything like that to happen. So we were joking around with Pangrak about the gray areas and fishing and things of that nature. And so when we got into the stump, I saw Hank, and I'm in a good mood. We're excited. So you're speaking freely, and there's fishermen everywhere. And I crack a joke to Hank, and I said, "Hey, Hank," I said, "I got one for you." He's like, "What's that?" He said, I said, "I was in the middle of downloading all of Panger's St. Lawrence River waypoints right in the middle of when you called. So am I allowed to keep those waypoints, or am I not allowed to keep those waypoints?" It's a complete joke based on the fact that he just had, as a tournament director, you know how the things that tournament directors have to deal with. The last thing he wants to do right now is deal with some like is potentially. And so he made a joke back and said, "Well, that's Lisa's territory now," or something like that. And so we all laughed or whatever. You know what I mean? And we went on. And I'm not talking about like within a day later, Pengrass getting messages from all sorts of other podcast people about the rumor of me, getting illegal waypoints. And it's like, dude, the haters come out of the woodwork. I mean, immediately. So like here we are in our celebration mode where you think you can just speak freely and like high five with each other, and people are just right there ready. Like they're ready, man. They don't want you on the elites. They don't want you doing good. The guys that are there that are established, man, they're nice, friendly. They're putting on a facade because they have to, which I need to as well, right? Like you don't want to see all my negative energies of life like out right now. But the truth is, like, they are true competitors, and they're going to do whatever it takes to keep you down and to step on you when they have to, and that includes, man, mentally and emotionally. Um, if that's what it takes to make you fish worse, they're going to do it, and that's just a part of the game now.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously, the only thing one would do when their back's against the wall is to double down and fish 2 tours next year, right?
Yeah, right. You can either quit, focus on the one tour, or go out and swing twice as hard. And that's what we're doing. We're going to fish two tours with the NPFL. Um, so you want me to explain why, or do
Yeah,
you
like
want
so. I mean, obviously, like you hear a lot of people, right? Like their rookie years, their sophomore years, right? Like, hey, yeah, maybe I'll mix in a couple opens late in the year if I can, or fish a couple of Toyotas right by home. But like, hey, I need to focus on this, right? Because this is the ultimate goal. So it's interesting that you've elected to stack the MPFL on the 6 events on top of the, I think, 9 elites. Is that right? I think right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and there's
yeah.
no
Not
obviously must not be any major conflicts. I haven't looked at the schedule, but you decided to do both. Obviously, it worked for Patrick Walters last year. He did quite well for himself, almost winning the AOI on. Uh, uh, I mean, he was
yeah.
what? Did he end up second on both sides?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in Trump's
Second or
tax
third on
bracket
both of them.
now.
He missed an event on the MPFL side, so um,
Yeah, he's a great fisherman, man.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah. So what's the logic and why are you doubling down on things in 2024?
so to take a step back, based on our original conversation, self-evaluation, right? I don't want to over correct, and I don't want to not make any corrections. There's corrections that need to be made, and so it wasn't a decision that I just made, you know, without thinking. I mean, I literally came to a head when I was at Lake of the Ozarks, and I went to the gas station, and I ran into Ish Monroe. We were pumping gas before one day before one of the events, and I mean, I don't know Ish that well, but we got some mutual friends with like Andrew Upshaw and things of that nature, and so I just basically we talked about my season, how off it was, and he mentioned to me about how one year he fished an FLW and the elites at the same time, and one or the other, I don't remember which one. He said, and I don't even know if he remembered exactly, but he said one of them he was like in the top 10 in AOI, and the other he was in the bottom of AOI in the same year. Uh, so he was like coming from California. He felt like the smartest thing for me to do was to just focus on one tour. And so I took that advice like super to heart, and actually that's kind of, I adopted that mentality a little bit. But as I was doing that, I was also finishing my season out fishing the opens, and I started to evaluate the tournaments that I'd done well in the past versus the ones that I didn't, the ones that I thought I should have done better than I did it, and the ones that I did good out of nowhere. And what I saw a pattern that when I hyper focused on one event for too long of a time, or if I knew too much about it, um, I fished bad. I had a bad result, even locally. Grand Lake, I've had a top 10 in an open there. I've had some wins on Grand, and some local tournaments and stuff. But more than not, I don't fish well on Grand. Now Eufaula, Oklahoma, I fish extremely well. I'm at the point now where if I'm not in the top 10 in Eufaula, I feel like I did bad. And I know that sounds like bragging, but I mean, if you look at my record, I've got a lot of top 10s on Eufaula in Oklahoma and several wins. I've always wondered to myself, why, what's so different? They do set up differently, but what's the deal? And I found a long time ago that on Grand, I find myself jumping spots. I become a spot fisherman on Grand for some reason. That's what I fell into. And on Eufaula, I don't really have spots. I have areas, and I understand the way the fish are behaving in those areas. And because I've had so much success, I understand when the sun shines, go to this style of water. When it's cloudy, go stop doing that immediately. Go over here, even if you haven't caught a fish over here in a week. The clouds are out now. It's time to go to this part of the lake. And so I understand the environmental effects of the fish a lot better, and I fish more like by the moment. And if I'm over, so back to the question on the elites, I felt myself focusing on elites. I already felt myself over focusing, hyper focusing on only those 9 events, and then having a preconceived notion in my head of how I'm going to fish. And I just honestly, I felt a little bit of anxiety in it, and I thought I need to do something to protect myself from that. And I looked into the Fishing More Opens, but the Opens were they're scheduled so close to the elites that it would have been a burden. And the NPFL, obviously, I feel at home with the NPFL. The NPFL has given me the platform to be able to grow to where I'm at. I mean, if it wasn't for the NPFL, I wouldn't be on the elites. It's just that simple. And so I have a home there, but also the 6 events are spread out. And the way that I'm going to fish the NPFL is I'm not going to pre-practice anything. I'm going to hardly do very much studying, and I'm going to try to force myself to stay in that fish in the moment mentality, and thereby, hopefully that carries into the elite events.
Where you're just fishing well and making adjustments and just listening to what the fish are telling you and all that kind of stuff. So, quick plug. If you don't get enough of John tonight, next Tuesday, he'll be hopping out with Gabe, Tin Horse Monty. So,
very cool. He's got a cool name too.
Let's see here. So speaking of that, I guess Lauren asked, how are you funding 2 tours? John definitely wasn't born with a silver spoon, based on everything I know about him. So maybe talk a little bit about how.
Man.
I think it's an interesting. I think there's, especially with Jacob Fouts, and there's been some other open anglers coming out talking about how they got these sales jobs, that's something people that are, if you're actually interested about fishing professionally, you kind of have to really think this through, because just going out and catching fish isn't always enough. So how are you setting yourself up to be able to afford 2 tours and that kind of stuff?
So let me address the sponsor side job born with a silver spoon. When my father died, a couple years later, we went to the bank to go sign some loan documents, and my wife was like stressed because this is a payment. And I looked at her and I said, "Why are you stressed, baby? This is our inheritance." Before my dad died and got sick with cancer and all that went on, we went out and took a loan. He took a loan out. I co-signed for him just so he could have the finances to survive for the next 3 years of everything that happened. My inheritance is debt. I didn't inherit anything. When I was 19, Molly and I got married. That's my wife still. So we've been married for 20 years. This was our 20th-year anniversary. We had a 19-foot travel trailer, no heat, no running water, no air conditioner, straight up 4 twin beds. And within a month, my sister-in-law moved in. She had 3 kids, and one was a newborn. Within a couple of years after that, my father and mother, they lost their house, and I ended up working a deal with my neighbor out in the country, and we tiled a house of his that he was building for a down payment so that they can move in next door. My father-in-law passed away when I was 23, and I held him in his garden as he was dying of cancer. And his last dying wish was take care of my garden, take care of my wife, and take care of my daughter. And we've done just that. I mean, my mother-in-law became, my mom, and she's our closest friend. And, I used to go on dates with my mother-in-law when I was 20 years old, and my wife too. We'd say it was date night, right? Take her out and go date. So during that whole process, those are all in my 20s. I didn't get a fish. I didn't get a fish at all. From 19 to 27, I fished. Now, I did work. I laid tile for 100-hour weeks, 80 to 100-hour weeks. I worked. Blood, sweat, tears. No excuses. To be honest with you, Jacob and I are friendly with each other, and I like Jacob as a person. So I don't want anybody to take this as like I'm taking shots at Jacob at all, because this is not what I'm saying. But my 20-year-old mentality would have been very much to whoop Jacob for saying the things that he said publicly. That was not an option to behave that way, to actually go nationwide with and to make a complaint about finances. I didn't have the finances in my life to spend a second to complain. I think complaining is about your finances. It's actually, it shows how blessed you are to even have the time to spend to do that. So I am, what I'm doing is I'm taking a 41-year-old man's perspective and put myself back when I was his age, the things I was dealing with at that time. and probably Jacob and I at that age, we wouldn't have got along. I've learned how to, you know, have a different perspectives and things in life. So I've built a tile business. I've built several different businesses, and somehow during that time, I was fortunate enough to make enough decisions that allowed me to create a business that got me in the fishing industry. And I was blessed to have the opportunity to fish the elites. And it's weird because when I qualified for the elites, it was at a time growing up through the fishing that uh, you look to those 40-year-olds because they were peaking, right? And I'm like, hey, I'm getting at that age. And I'm looking up to these guys that taught me how to throw a jig, and I'm like, yeah, I'm becoming the Lee Sanders in Oklahoma. For anybody that knows, and if Lee ever saw this, you know, he's the man. Like he knows how to throw a jig like nobody else. And I got to fish with him as a co-angler and watch him throw that jig and be like, oh my goodness, like this is awesome, you know. And I finally got that to that age where I'm that guy. I'm dominating every local tournament. I'm doing this. My confidence level is soaring. Success is coming out of the woodworks. I don't even know why I'm having so much success. And then all of a sudden, the world switches. And I thought I was going to inherit this 40-year-old wisdom. And the tech world comes out, the YouTube world comes out, and now it's the 20-year-olds ball game. So I am at an era that I just missed it, man. The 40-year-olds, they were dominating. I finally got there, and it was like, oh, no, now it's the 20-year-olds. And so now I'm an old man as a rookie getting my tail whooped. And so what do you do, man? Do I go back to when I was a kid and remember the struggle and the fight and what it took to actually get to where I could put food on the table for everybody in my family, including myself? And now I got 4 kids and a wife, and yeah, I've built up some things in my life that um, that I would hate to lose, but we're here, and this is our last opportunity, and so we're all in. We are gambling. I am that small percentage of person that is gonna say, can I lose everything? I'm not gonna lose everything I got, but can I lose enough that our life becomes uncomfortable? Yeah, 100% I can. I 100% can this year. So I'm building another business, another brand as we speak. It'll be launched soon. It's the hat that I have on right now. Starting an outdoor store, and it's gonna and I'm choosing to do that instead of go back and lay in tile. Okay, I still have a tile company. It basically is covering the bills. I used to have 50 to 100 employees working for me, slinging tile day and night. Casinos, hospitals, you know, schools, army bases, military bases, everything that's uncomfortable. And I've done things that are just stupid. I mean, when I was younger, like maybe I bragged, talked to myself about how tough and how strong I was, and I was. But man, I mean, it's just destroying my body. And so, do I want to go back and do that? No, I don't want to. Will I if it comes down to it? Yeah, man. I'll get back playing tile if that's what it takes. But I'm really trying to take a leap of faith here and put my energies and my strengths into staying within inside the fishing industry. And if that means I got a successful elite series, that's awesome. But at the minimum, if I can have a company where I can stay inside the fishing industry and still talk fishing every day and sell fishing lures or sell equipment of that kind, then you know what, man? At the end of the day, and I'm still putting food on the table for my kids. I've had a pretty blessed life, man, and that so through all the negativity of what I've got and the struggles that I've got going on right now, I've got a potential of having a life that you know majority of people would love to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you able to touch on the bass tank at all or not?
I mean, basically, I sold my portion out to the other half of the company's owner, Scott, around March last year. And other than that, I'm not really at capacity to say much more about that. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I was kind of in a niche market. Um, to you know, basically, you're pushing live scopes 24/7. It's all live scope, live scope, live scope, live scope. And although I loved it, and I love everything that I put my passion into, I have a liberty right now that I never knew that was going to be there. In that I can do a lot of horizon things on the horizon. The store Save More, we're going to be an outdoor store, not just only fish and tackle. I do have a large selection that we're working on getting inventoried online, but we'll be able to do some things outside of just fishing lures, and that fits my personality a lot more. That fits my marketing mind a lot more. That fits like my ADHD mind a little bit more. That I can just do more things, and so I'm excited about that opportunity.
Cool. Actually, let's let's come back and talk a little bit more, Save More. I'm going to have like a quick little insert here from one of my partners, and we'll talk back and learn more about this Save More in just a minute here.
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process, from pre-qualification to closing. We have a wide variety of home loan programs in our tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time homebuyer options. You can ask HellaBass. He trusted us to help finance his home. Contact the Dream Team today by searching Supreme Lending Dream Team, or click the link below in the description, or scan the QR code on your screen.
All right, we're back. Thanks to the Dream Team. Thanks for taking a minute, everybody. Appreciate that. We got like 135 people watching on YouTube and a few people straggling on Facebook and stuff. So, and I forgot to put it on Instagram tonight. So maybe next time. Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, so you obviously the bass tank, did fine, was growing, but little too narrow. Didn't allow you to kind of like get into all the things and do as much as you wanted. Tell me more about this Save More Outdoors.
Well, first, I'll take one step back. At one point in time, about 10 years ago, I got into the real estate game. I used to buy real estate and flip houses, and I got some rentals and stuff like that going. And I learned a little bit more about the concept of money and how it works. Based on the conditioning of most people's minds, we believe in the power of that piece of paper that says 100 on it more than we value, the value of an actual product. And that hinders 99% of people from actually making, the kind of decisions that entrepreneurs need to make, right? And so with that understanding, I've kind of broke into an opportunity to a business plan, if you will, to specialize in overstock and liquidated products. So we're not going to be an Omnia. We're not going to be a tackle warehouse. We're not going to be, don't think the same lines. We're actually a company that we're going to do some retail things online, and that's going to allow us for branding, and we're going to pass some wholesale pricing on to consumers. So there's some opportunity there. But everything we have is going to be a unique product that's probably of limited supply. We may have a bunch of it, but once they're sold out, they're sold out. And on the backside of the company, we're actually doing a wholesaling. So we're in that process now of reaching out to companies, creating relationships. And so we would actually be like a supplier to an Omni, or a supplier to Tackle Warehouse, a supplier to a distributor even. That's one side of the business. There's another side of the business that I've got another company called Mojo Fishing. I've had it for a long time. Mojo, my wife Molly, Joe, John, and we're developing a couple lures. I've got a frog that's going to be coming out called the Hypno Toad, and that will come to market. It's we aren't going to make the greatest frog in the world. It's a really good frog, but it's going to be the coolest frog in the world, and that's what we're going to be able to have fun with the marketing. I 100% tell you, it will be the coolest frog that you've ever seen, with some of the greatest marketing behind it. And that part is fun. I mean, who doesn't love going out and smashing fish on a frog? So, like, would I have known a year ago that I got such tunnel vision on the live scope thing that I wasn't happy in business? No, I wouldn't have known at that time, because I was, there's a special part about a man that when he's putting food on the table and providing for his family, his pride's in that, and he's not worried about, like, is he fully happy or not. But then when you do have an opportunity that comes through of doing some things, like I said, more horizontally, we just closed. You find out there, hey man, I've got some pleasure in this. I enjoy, I don't want to run back into just putting that niche on. I enjoy being able to be spread out a little bit. That's kind of where my mind thinks. And like, for example, we just closed a deal with Black Rifle, and we got a bunch of Black Rifle coffee. I'm working a hat deal right now to buy a bunch of hats. I'm in a bunch of hats. And so just some various things like that keep us with products that are in the outdoor space, that I can use the platform of the elites and fishing. Anything that you're doing fishing or outdoorsy, we can do that inside the store.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So you said it's launching soon, or when do?
Yeah, I mean, the website's probably live right now. You can probably go on the website, savemooreoutdoors.com. It's kind of, we haven't like publicly done a launch yet. We're doing the punch list. You know what I mean? Going through all the backside things, and we're just finalizing some of our inventory that we're trying to. There's a bunch of products that actually aren't on the website yet that we've been dealing with inventory count, things like that. So, I mean, we're about a month. I wanted to be ready at Black Friday, so we're about a month beyond what I wanted to do. But yeah, there you go. That's cool. Yeah, and there's the Hypnotoad. So yeah, there's one thing that we got right there that you showed.
You can actually buy Mojo Hypnotoads right now.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, look at that price. Like, you're not going to find a frog anywhere else, and it's not a cheap. This is a really, really good frog. And why is it so inexpensive at the moment? It's because it's me and one other guy inside the company. And we don't have 10, people running around. So we're keeping the cost down. And the idea is for us to do some fun things that allow me to go on the Elite Series and NPFL and stay fishing, and not have the stress of this major overhead behind us. But that frog is an awesome frog. The white one, if you guys like white, it's the brightest, whitest frog you've ever had. But the thing that's most interesting about the Hypnotoad is that it's the softest frog that you'll ever hold. It is really, really soft and subtle. Subtle, is that the right word? And I threw it all last year, and I never lost a fish on it. The hookup ratio is just, and I think it has to do with that soft body.
Well, we got a black one. If the hooks are good and the body's soft, that you're 90% of the way there. So.
Yep. We got a popping one as well, so you can do popping or regular.
I'm more of a walking frog guy, but I know people like that.
So this frog is a lot lighter. It casts well in the wind, but it's a lot lighter than. It's comparable to a Spro body shape, okay? But it's lighter than that, and it floats higher on the water column. So like your popping frog, it actually walks better than any frog that I've ever thrown. It's because it's so light, you can just give it little twitches and it just stay in one place. So if like you're looking for a frog that you want to put across the bed and fish and just keep it over it for a long time, this is one of them.
It's like the Sammy of frogs, very high.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, you got some stuff up there. People can go take a look at. Looks like you got some things marked down already.
Yeah, I think we're doing. We got a markdown for our opening that we haven't launched yet officially, but it's still available now. Like the scrounger heads, those are the original scrounger heads. And if you click on it, we've actually got a gold head in certain sizes, and you just can't see those gold. You can't find them anywhere. So we got some cool things that are actually unique. Is that the right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So if you're a scrounger fisherman and you want the original scrounger head, and especially if you want a gold one, I don't think anybody else has these in the United States. We got some of the old Rick Clun trickster spinner baits all the way up to 3/4 ounce. So those are some unique products.
So is it safe to say there'll be a Save More boat wrap this year?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a big part of the game plan. Our Hypnotoad marketing is so awesome that it's going to be hard not to incorporate that heavily. But I make this much money on it compared to if Save More does good, So it's like, So it will be a Save More title. So which circles back to the question: well, how do you afford to fish the Elites in PFL, right? I incorporated into the business model and marketing model of how do I build this company, and it's an expensive expense that the company, and a burden to the company to take on, but in return, we've had some success building brands in the past. It's just we're back to building a brand again, starting over and building a new brand.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting to watch that, and who doesn't like getting a good deal?
Yeah. What's interesting about deals? I was at an expo a decade ago, expo show, and there was a guy that had some rods, and he kept on swearing about how good these rods were, and his booth was right across from my booth. And I watched him. He couldn't move these rods. It was a 3-day expo. He couldn't move the rods. I forgot what he was selling them for, like $60 to $100 a piece. And somebody gave him the thought, "You're selling these rods too cheap. People think something's wrong with them." So he literally went in that final day, and instead of marking them down, he marked them up. He like doubled them, and he sold out every single rod. It's so weird being on this side of the business, the marketing side of business. People's minds of what turns us on and turns us off isn't always the truth of what's good out there. And so a good consumer can pick those up, but 90% of us our consumer decisions are based on what we've allowed ourselves to be told by the people that we're surrounded around, or what we're watching, what we're listening to, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You see that, yeah. Things that sometimes, right? Like I think you see that with guide trips, right? Like you got like 'em or love 'em, right? Josh Jones staying plenty busy at whatever $1,000 a day, and you got other guys that maybe for $400 can't book trips, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes they.
Fun fact that no one knows about: Josh Jones and I are actually neighbors.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Interesting small world that people that would be so influential in the forward-facing sonar world would be so close in a little neighborhood that has nothing to do with fishing.
Well, Money Bass, don't want to ignore this. Thanks for the $5 super chat. He says, "Do you think older pros resent the younger anglers for winning and using front-facing sonar as a scapegoat?"
Yeah, 100% they are. But I understand the emotion behind it, and it takes a very, very selfless man to analyze himself and say, "Hey, being a grumpy old man and work harder." Especially when you get to that point in stage of life where you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, your body's breaking down, you can't stay up as late at night, you're not as smart as you used to be, you're not as quick as you used to be, all these things. So not only are you fighting the fact that now you're getting challenged, but you're being challenged against what your body's telling you to do, what your body's telling you to slow down. So I felt that, and I'll give you an example. When I came into the NPFL and started having all the success I had, of course, I didn't turn any down, but I was having opportunities to be podcast all the time, and you're on a high, and you're naive because you're thinking, hey, everybody loves me, and then all of a sudden you have just enough too much success where everybody's like, and all of a sudden I had these guys that were like in the elite that were kind of giving me, bad feelings or not good vibes or not really being friendly, and and then I had some things that were personal attacks and stuff like bring down the integrity of who you were as a character, your character assassinations and stuff like that. And you're like, what the heck? Or I don't get it. Like, well, dude, it's just the real world, right? Like fishing world's not it's not a make believe world where these things like you love the fishing world so much that I went into it naive, thought, well, man, it's all rainbows and butterflies, and we all love each other, and we hug and look like trolls. We do little troll dances, and we go catch fish, and that's just not the way it is at all. Because of the nature of the competitiveness within inside the industry, it is so hard to be a bass pro, to pay all your bills. It is very hard to keep yourself from being jealous of the guy that is getting this love. For an example, I mean, and I hate the fact, Jacob, if you watch this, man, I love you, dude. This isn't really picking on you this way, but here's an example. Jacob goes out there and makes a complaint video, and he gets, I don't know how many thousands of YouTube subscribers the next day. And you got guys that have worked their tail off for years and years and years, invested money and beyond what people can even think of, and it's past the time, and their followers are just, they never grow. And is that fair? No, I mean, it's not fair, but the problem is the world's not fair. So you have to, if you find yourself in that position like I am now, year two, right? Year one going to the elites, everything was good. Everything was good. After year one, I got cut by five different companies cut me this year. And a lot of the excuses that I got when I talked to him was, basically my social media presence wasn't what it was, and things of that nature. And deep down inside, I knew I wasn't the same person that I was the 3 or 4 years before. So what do? Do I just get bitter and get complained? And then while this is happening, these new guys that are coming in, I'll watch a new guy. He picks up. So I might get cut by a company, and they're like, "Well, our budget, we couldn't fit you in. Here's these excuses of why they cut me." And yet they had enough budget for the new guy that hasn't done anything yet besides look shiny at an open stage, which I'm telling you is not the same level as the elites. Don't let any of those open guys fool you. I'm telling you, it's not the same level. Now, do they deserve it if they qualify? Yes, I'm not picking on any of those guys for qualifying, but it's just they haven't proven themselves yet. I haven't proven myself yet on the elite stage. They haven't proven themselves. So why do they get it? So I feel and I understand that emotion of jealousy of, and so I have to stop myself and say, you know what? It's time to be a man. You know what I mean? There are things I should have done better last year. there are things. So do I sit there and pout and cry, or do I say, hey, you know what? Listen, thank these people that have been hard on me and they've had to cut me. It wasn't easy for them to cut. Nobody wants to cut anybody, considering the fact of where they had to come from, and still love and respect them. That one day, man, that some of these guys I lost, I'd love to earn the right. I would love to come back and say, hey, man, I hope I'm here. And so uh, that is a part of something that I'm having to do and adapt and change to. Of course, I know the question was geared towards the live scoping thing, but to me, it goes way beyond just live scoping. Is my point. And these are some small examples of what I'm feeling like and what I'm dealing like with my own emotions. Being 41 years old, looking at a 20-year-old that's getting all this, things that I'm having to deal with this myself. So I understand and so I think if we all understand where that feeling and that emotion comes from, I think we can be a little bit more sympathetic to each other and not be such a hater on Randy Blockett just because he's making these comments, that kind of deal.
I think it's a part of it. And I think the sonar is the easiest thing to point to. But I think, JT Tompkins putting 700 hours on his outboard shows the level of commitment that he put into it. And the electronics is just a sliver of that, right? Obviously, he's doing everything within his powers to do everything he can. And when you're 20, it's a lot easier to do that when you're 45 and you got a family, right? And businesses and things like that. So,
yeah. And I mean, dude, it's like the crane kick in Karate Kid, right? Like Danielson, he went out there and he practiced for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours until he got the crane kick. Well, like, I don't have time to practice the crane kick. So when it comes down to fight time and, JT Tompkins pulls a crane kick on me, why can't I be better at him? And he spent time. It's not because he's young that he's able to do it. He spent the time and effort to get that out there. I could put everything off in my life and go out there and learn how to do the crane kick. I just have to be more of a more well-rounded adult right now of where I'm at in responsibilities in life. And so, hats off to these guys. Yes, they were fortunate. Yes, a lot of them have some backings that I didn't have at that time in life. But I mean, I'm not going to be jealous of them because they put in. It's too hard to get where they're at and to do what they did based off of luck or because they have a silver spoon. It's just way too hard. And what sport in the world that we all love, whether it's football or basketball or whatever, yes, we got some kids that come out of some inner city stuff and they're just great athletes. And those are tremendous stories that we all clap for. But the reality is 95% of those kids went to a high school that was handpicked from them. Their parents chose to get in that tax bracket, chose to go to that school, chose the coaches. They got facilities that are multi-million dollar facilities, and they're getting trained, they're getting supplements, they're getting everything they need at a very young age. And then they become a pro. And there's no difference. And those that have, they have more. And those that don't, it's harder. So when you find a guy that doesn't have them, man, like me, root for me, man. If you're an underdog, I'm the one underdog that's on the Elite Series, man. I get it, but I'm not going to choose to hate everybody else just because they got some kind of special, what looks like to be special benefits in their life. They got things going on in their life that they're just not talking about too, just like every one of us.
Just one little thing, John. Sometimes when you lean forward, I think your mic is like right here on your hoodie.
Okay.
And like, it looks like right? Yeah. Just sometimes it rubs and it kind of muffles you out a little bit. So just be careful
Gotcha.
that's not rubbing on your hoodie. But other than that,
Gotcha.
most of the time it sounds good, except for like when you get really excited and into it, and like then it catches on there. But,
calm down. I'll calm down.
Yes, I think some people are commenting that they like the hoodie on the website. Which is that the hoodie you're wearing?
It is the hoodie that I'm wearing, and those are actually being built. You can we did some pre-orders to find out how much interest level we're going to do, and then we're going to start bringing in a bigger drop.
So Tim, along those lines, what are your thoughts? Does it come down to just social media and reach, or are there other parts of, in your opinion, sponsorship appeal? Like how much you think is winning versus just social media reach versus other values that you deliver?
Okay, so first of all, winning trumps all. Winning trumps all.
Winning solves everything.
Winning
Catching
solves
more
everything.
bass than winning solves everything.
So there's two challenges that we're talking about: maintaining competing at the top level and making money. All right. So let's say, for example, Ben Milliken fails in his next 2 years and he gets kicked off the elites. Ben is going to be fine as a person. because of what products he can move, what kind of money he makes. He'll be just fine. But his passion is to stay on the elite level. So he's got to win. Now there's things that people can do outside of social media. Social media is huge. I've got to build mine better. I have to because I got all the skin in the world, the skin of the game with my new brand. I got all those eggs in that basket. The company's got to survive. It's got to thrive, and I've got to make money. 100%. I have to make money to pay my bills. I don't have a free ride at all. So, with that being said, there are some unique abilities that people have outside of just social media. There are lots of opportunities that we have to actually help a business. So it's going to come down to a business. It's not like there's a public grant for them for bass fishermen. I don't know. Maybe if Trump Jr. gets in, I heard that he likes fishing and hunting. So I mean, but there is no grant program for us, man. All of us that are blue collar workers that love to fish, but we've all had and built up a value to a company. That value may be as simple as just being able to explain it to that company how to become more efficient in some things they do. You can have a value in that you have a boat, you've got tools, right? You can take somebody out fishing. You can take either a CEO out fishing or say, hey, do you have a customer that you want to keep, or reward for being your customer? Take them on the water. There's all sorts. There's hundreds of different angles, but it all comes down to how can I help benefit this company? And it's not always just social media, sales, awareness. It's not always the deal, even though that's where we focus 90% of our conversation.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I even outlined some of that, like kind of a little, fell into the trap, did a little 5-minute reaction video to Jacobs. And I was like, it's all about adding value. Like it doesn't have to be Instagram and YouTube. You can be like doing boat demos on your day off, or if you missed the cut, right, you can be doing meet and greets. You can be opening new accounts, right? Stopping at dealerships, or bait, let's say you got I think Arc Rods, right? Was he like pounding the pavement, stopping at tackle shops, doing introductions for Arc Rods, getting, I mean, like there's other things you can do that provide a ton of value to businesses that can go a long ways besides just making YouTube and TikToks.
So, now he's got a role going right now. So like if I was in his position, I'd be firing those things off.
Now completely steer into it and just do the social media thing.
Like, and the next opportunity that he has, I bet he does. I bet he does tenfold what he did for his former sponsors, just because of this experience that he learned. I think he'll do a lot better when it comes to that.
Cool. Yeah, exciting. So, I guess a couple things I want to mention here. So we're going to go to about 10 o'clock tonight, and then I'm actually going to do a members live afterwards. So for you, those that are members in the chat that didn't see that, just know that's coming up. We'll go to 10 and then a 5-minute bio break, and we'll go members live. And we'll talk about the Hella games and how we're going to give away a 16-volt powerhouse lithium battery. So far, there's only 3 eligible entrants. So we'll talk more about that tonight. Just wanted to let people know that. Yeah. So next year, who are you? Are you traveling solo? Are you traveling with somebody else? What's your plan on like travel wise to stay focused or positive? I left the Christmas lights on so we could have fun tonight and get the year going in the right motion. But what are your travel plans and how does that feed into your focus/fun level for your 2 tours?
So I had choosing a roommate is very odd because it's just like a team. Just because you have the best players in the house doesn't mean they're going to help each other. I've had a lot of success at times with guys that I wouldn't necessarily say are of the level of like a Bradley Hallman, and so I'm aware of that, and I've been kind of careful not to just jump anywhere. But Kyle Norsetter reached out to me when he found out that Bradley retired and asked me if we and. But I don't think it doesn't sound like we're going to room together the whole time. He's got his wife and stuff, so we're kind of undecided about what events and how we're going to room together. But outside of that, for the most part, I'm going to be a loner. For the times that Kyle will have me in his house, I'll room with him. But outside of that, I'm going to be a loner.
Are you like a campground guy, a motel guy? Like, what do you like to do when you're traveling solo?
Man, just give me a small, comfortable place to sleep as close to the water as possible. I don't need any fancy place or anything like that. I don't necessarily even eat that much when I'm on the road. I'm not a big cooker. I'm not a big griller. I actually eat really healthy when I'm out. Not, I mean, yes, by choice, but just because it's easier to just prepare stuff and just so I'm not. I'll go out to eat, if I got some people to socialize, but for the most part, I'm just really focused on the fish, like 100% focused on dreaming and thinking and analyzing. While I'm at the event, the green fit. That's it. I did think about doing the camping thing, and I sincerely want to, but with starting, there's just so much bandwidth. I don't have the time this off season to get a camper and stuff set up. I ended the season last year, trying to sleep in my truck a little bit, and fortunately made some good friends, and I got invited in on the couch a few times, and um, that was the thought that I had, try to save some money and do things that way. But I mean, there is also a mathematical fact that a 6'5" guy doesn't fit very well in the bed of a truck. You know what I mean? Like, so I do know that I need to keep comfortable and things like that, and I don't want that to affect my efficiency. These are all the thoughts. I'm just sharing you the thoughts that went through my
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely. No, it's cool.
But for most part, for me, it's going to be more like something closer, like a small cabin or a motel room that's close to the water. Is what I'll be looking for if for the opportunities that I don't have with Kyle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I actually really actually got a pickup now. I used to sleep in the back of my Tahoe, which even me being at like 6'2" was a stretch. But like now I got the long box on the Silverado. It's a little more roomy for this year when I need to do that. Um, but yeah, I
I'm
just like the peace of mind of being at a campground. I don't like being at hotels and motels fighting over power and
mm,
covering up my boat, and I don't feel like I sleep like with one eye open, like trying to listen out my window. Like I don't know, I just prefer like campgrounds. There's communities or like a private, like you get a small Airbnb, even if it's just a little room or a little like just anything where you're just kind of off the beaten path and not, along with 20 other rigs in a hotel. I don't know.
yeah.
That's my thought. But
Yeah, Bradley and I always did the Airbnb, and of course we had Travis with us, was doing the camera thing. And that last year, his wife was going to travel, and she was expecting, and actually stopped her from traveling with us because they had a healthy baby and stuff this winter, but like there was concern there that she couldn't travel as much. So we had all that set up for them. But if it's just myself, you know, I agree with you on the camping side. I foresee if I continue to qualify for the elites that I'm go down that route. I'm always jealous of Kenta when he just pops right out of his hit the back of his truck and just gets right on the water. He lives right. Kenta told me something unique, and I mean this is what he told me, so I'll just put it this way: he's got a house and wife back in Japan.
mhm.
He has slept in that camper so much that when he goes back to Japan, he actually bought a camper for a truck so he can sleep because he can't sleep unless he's in a camper. Isn't that crazy how much time he's dedicated to that? That's how he is.
What's crazier is like with him fishing the elites and all the opens. When does he go back to Japan and surprise you?
Yeah.
They have a very special relationship, obviously.
Yeah, it's different. It is. He's back there right now, as far as I know. I think he goes back 1 or 2 times a year. That's it. Yeah.
I'm sure he gets probably what, like 2 solid months in the winter, our winter, right? But then maybe goes back for a month around like in July, like the ICAST break maybe or something like that. But like, yeah,
I wonder if he just shows up in time for the spawn or something. Like it. Like
yeah.
hopefully he goes back when it's like the time to be back.
There you go. Right on. Let me go back and look at a couple of these. So yeah, look, there's been a couple questions. Is there anything you're looking forward to, either on the MPFL or the elites, or like a? I mean, obviously, every event's important, but like, are there a
hmm
couple that you're excited about
hmm
or interested in?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I, I gotta say that the first two, the Toledo Bend, Lake Fork, back to back. Um, I've competed on Toledo Bend in the wintertime. A couple of years ago, there was an ABA solo, and I got like second or third in that. Of course, we could throw the A rig, and I was throwing an A rig quite a bit. Um, uh, and then Lake Fork is only 4.5 hours from my house, but I've never been on it to bass fish. I've only been on it a couple times to crappie fish. Besides that, when I was like a junior in high school, we went down there and what I'm talking about with a tournament mindset and focus. So,
right.
like, I literally don't even know how to run the lake. But that is a style of fishing and a time of year that I'm extremely comfortable with. Things could fall into my wheelhouse that it could go really well for me. So that's obviously the hopes.
So no better way to have a good season, just get off to a hot start.
100%. I have to. You know, last year, the 9 events in the elites, I had before that year had started, I'd never been to any of the lakes that we fished. I'd never been on any of those. Now, by the time the season got around, I'd jumped in a couple opens and like St. Lawrence, so I'd been on that one time before and all that. But this year, I think that 6 of the 9. I have that number in my head 6, but I'd have to like think through. But at least 4 or 5 of them, yeah, 4, 5. At least 5 of the events that we're fishing this year, I've been to those. And you know, Harris Chain's on there, and Harris Chain's kind of like my Eufaula, Oklahoma tournament, in that I've had one bad finish in Florida. That was this year on the elites. It was like 100th place or whatever. It was a horrible finish. But outside of that, I've never not finished in the top 10, and I've won. So I finished 3rd in the Open, and I won an NPFL on Harris Chain. And I've always felt like I can like I have an intimate connection with Harris Chain. Not necessarily the first day I show up, but by the time the tournament starts, I feel like I can understand those fish. And I'm hoping that continues, you know, in the
and this
in
being
the
more
elites.
post-spawn summer will be more similar to the other times of year. I would think that you've had more consistent success in Florida, so I think that should fit. What about NPFL? Is there one? I don't even remember what the NPFL schedule is. Is there one that excites you on there? Or have you even looked at? Do you actually know the schedule for the NPFL?
No, no, I don't. Not off memory. I'm trying to look around and see if I've got it written down somewhere.
Well, I have Google. So,
I know the first one's Logan Martin. And
Coosa.
Yeah, Coosa River spots. I didn't do very well in lay. I think I got like 55th in the elites. So I kind of have a redemption mentality there at Logan, because I feel like I should be able to do better on those events. It's still going to be a wintertime situation.
So winter, late January, Logan Martin, May on Hartwell, July on Pickwick, late August, Saginaw Bay, September, St. John's River. And then, is there 7 of it? No. Okay. October, Ozarks.
Yeah. So walk me through those one by one. So Logan, what I'm excited about on Logan is that I have spent in the last 5 years, besides this year and last year, I've spent a tremendous amount of time winter fishing. I spent a lot of time learning how to use this technology and train people how to use the electronics, and I fell in love with winter fishing. I love it. I hardly hunt at all because I just love being on the water in the winter. I don't like the cold. I like the way the fish behave and set up in the wintertime. And I understand why they do it. And so when we talk about going back to like making sure you're fishing like not necessarily to your strength, but what some things you enjoy and love to do, I think I'm going to be happy rolling in the Logan Martin, knowing that we're wintertime fishing. The second event, did you say that was not Pickwick? But okay.
Hartwell in May.
Yeah.
That's so probably borderline spawn-ish.
Yes.
Spawn,
so we were there in April and there was a spawn going on. And then I was there with the opens in like late May or June or something like that. And so it's kind of right in between the 2 times. And the one thing that I remember the first time we were there is that the herring spawn hadn't really happened yet. So what I'm assuming on this is that we're going to be hitting it, you know, herring spawn time. And I've never got to do that yet. And so I think that's an exciting thing to potentially be able to, especially if I can get on some kind of topwater bite. Who doesn't love like throwing a big spook or something like that? I don't know if that's possible, but
fantastic lake that seems to put them out year round. Like
it's just the population of fish, man. It's just a high population.
Balanced largemouth spots. They're both healthy. You can go, you can John Cox it up a river arm, and you can fish super deep water by the dam and everything in between, I think. So
yeah. Pickwick, we finished the first year on the NPFL. We fished that same week on Pickwick. I was in the top 10 going in the final day, and I bombed. I caught one fish. It was like, and I bombed the final day. I still caught a check because of how well I did in the first 2 days. But it was tremendously difficult at that time because the slugfest and stuff's going on in May and June, and by the time we get to there July, they've been beat up pretty good. So I'm aware of what goes on there, but I predict that's going to be a lot tougher tournament than most people would think typical Pickwick would be. Saginaw, I did really good that same time of year. If you see any of those videos or pictures of me like with my boat way up in the way up in the reeds where you can't even see anything, and I'm cutting trails and stuff. I did really well on largemouth there. I think I finished somewhere between third to fifth. Maybe I'm gonna probably say I finished fifth in that event. And I just slowly worked my way up. Now, with that being said, it was one on smallmouth in 2021, and then last year the top 2 or 3 guys all had smallmouth. And I've never been able to. I only had one day of practice out there. I couldn't figure out the smallmouth, so I don't know exactly how I'll approach that one. But it can be fun if I'm able to get up in the reeds and catch the right side.
Yeah.
You can go up in the reeds and catch 100
get
bass.
a really nice check and catch a pile of green ones.
You can catch a pile, but you can also set the hook all day long and only come in with 12 pounds. And these guys are catching 5 fish smallmouth, and they got 18, 19 pounds, and all they did was reeling 5. So that's the tricky part there. The St. John's, interesting enough on the St. John's, is we're not going out of the same part of the river that any national tournament's ever gone out of. We're going way down south on that.
John
So
Cox's backyard is where you're going out of.
is that where we're going?
I think so.
I mean,
I think you're actually launching from his house. Like that's
His
like
house.
the weigh-in's actually in John Cox's backyard.
Yeah, so I will have been on the St. John's River with the elites prior to this in the year, but it's going on a completely different side of. So I don't know if I'll learn anything on the elite side that helps translate into a good finish there, but that one has got my.
There was a regional there a few years ago that was in like September, October, and they caught him. So I think there is potential. This could be a sneaky good tournament where we may see some things and, bass eating mullet and, different bait fish and some unique things going on that could make that a really interesting one to actually tune into. When a lot of the other live fishing is wrapped up for the year, I think that honestly, Saginaw and St. John's could be really fun ones to watch on the MPFL. And then Lake of the Ozarks, it's kicking them out.
We finished out the year of the opens there around that same time. Maybe it was a little bit earlier than that in October. And I was able to get a glimpse into, some things that are special there. And so I feel centered on that one. I feel like I kind of I won't need to do any pre-practice. Like I said, I'm not doing any pre-practicing at all in the MPFL. Not because I don't want to do good, but because I need to keep my instincts and intuition tuned in. And I'm going to use this as a tuning ground.
So obviously you have been known for your prowess with electronics and your lineage back to your previous business and that kind of stuff. What is your boat motor still running the Express this year?
I am not running Express anymore.
Okay.
I've actually.
So run us through what's new. Bow to stern. Give us the breakdown.
Bow to stern. I don't have my boat yet, so there you go. So I don't have a full breakdown. I got a mental breakdown of what it's going to be. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, last year on Lake Champlain and St. Lawrence River, it was big water. It was rough, and the Express handled it well. I never speared a wave. I got around everywhere. But there was a couple times on Champlain that I was out in the middle, and I mean, I couldn't even stand on my front deck with the waves coming in, making my control motor come out of the water. And I'm trying to live scope fish, and I look over, just 100 yards over is Matt Robertson and Brock Mosley, and they're like boat to boat like this without even a seat, and they're just stably, dropping on fish. And the unfortunate reality of where we're at, next year we finish the season again, Champlain and St. Lawrence. And if this is my last season to fish the elites, if it is, do I want to go out knowing that I'm handicapping myself? When we're running the St. Lawrence River, we're actually going out way in the river, which is an 80-mile run to the lake. I foresee in my mind, if I have an Express, I'm not even I'm stressed about even making that. Like I'm mind blocked already. I'm overanalyzing. I can't even make it to the lake. I've cut that part out. Well, what if I'm like have to Matty Wong it next year and it comes down to the last day, and I've already mentally blocked myself out and I can't. I don't want to have any hindrance. So um, I've decided to move back into a fiberglass boat, and I've got a relationship with Blackbeard Marine out of Tulsa, who in turn has a relationship with Blazer, and they gave me an opportunity to work with them and build me a boat. So I'm actually having a Blazer being built as we speak. Everything on my boats get 21. It's a 650. Okay. So, a lot of these guys like Birds and stuff, they got 25. So they're like, got 3 or 4 or 5 miles an hour. I don't know how much faster they go, but they're pretty dang fast. I needed to be, to me, I'm just a little bit bigger one, a little bit more comfort zone and stuff. So I got 21. Everything's Garmin. I think that Yamaha, Garmin, Power Poles, the Pro Guide that I've always ran. And that's kind of that's about everything, right?
So I guess just like 4 units, 5 units.
Oh yeah. So in the past, I've always ran 2 12s at the dash and a 16-inch unit at the front. And every once in a while, I'll throw a 10-inch unit on there if I go up north and I want to run perspective to be able to see the flatter rock piles. Like Oklahoma rock piles, you don't need that. But up north, the rock piles are a lot flatter, and you need to see those transitions a lot more. And so that perspective actually helps. So I'm going to run I'm actually going down a step from a GPS maps to Eco Maps. A little bit of that is cost friendliness, but also the Garmin guys that travel, that's what they have to help and repair. I feel like so I'll have 4 12s. I'll have 2 at the console and 2 at the trolling motor, and they'll do waterfall with each other, and I'll do a little bit more low profile so I can try to keep my more low profile mounts. That should enable me to save a little bit more on fuel mileage and things that keep maintain some speed. I'm looking to pick up some of that. I've always gone with the GPS map 16-inch. I've got one for sale if anybody wants an 8616. It's in a box. It's probably got its warranty still brand new. It's like it was ready to go for this year. It's a $6,100 unit. I'd probably let it go for like $5,000. But I've decided that, in the last few years, I've had it up real high so I can see it real detailed, and I like the detail on it. But I've also feel like maybe I'm over committing my mind to focusing on that, and so I've decided to dumb it down a little bit, go with the Eco Maps. The returns on those are a little bit more brighter. They're a little bit more bald, if you will, like a more ball return than actually a detailed return. And my thought process, and I hope I'm not wrong about this, my thought process is keeping those down away from me a little bit. Hopefully I can keep my mind freed up. It's like trying to do your paperwork when the TV's on. Like it's hard to focus on your paperwork. I almost have that same feeling that bigger screen up higher for me is more of a distraction, and I've got to have that balance, and I want to maintain that balance. So I'm getting it down there lower. Before LiveScope and stuff came out, I mean, you can see how I won Harris Chain. I'm a flipping frogging guy. I'm up in the creeks. I'm all over the place, and regardless of whether I'm going to use that in the tournament or not, I feel like I have to mentally have that freedom that I'm still preparing for that opportunity to be a Kyle Welcher, to fish like a Jason Christie. I mean, Jason Christie is the ultimate standard, but of how an Okie actually fishes. I mean, that's how we fish. And if you completely just cut that repertoire out of your system, I think mentally and emotionally it takes something out of your, the process that you need to diagnose what the fish are doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's cool. Well, that's a big change. That's exciting. Yeah, I think Seth's running a Blazer. I don't know if he's kind of leaked that in his Instagram post, or there'd be there's somebody else. So somebody else excited that they were going to be the first Blazer on tour, and now there's going to be a few of them. I forget who that was, but let me just peek over at is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we haven't thought about yet?
Well, I think Seth is going to be like the poster child for Blazer. And like when Seth's got a sore throat or something, and maybe he needs like some hot warm tea or something, I got to be the guy that goes warms it up and brings it to him. It says, "Here you go,
So
sir."
you'll throw a couple extra warm Mountain Dews in the back of your compartment in case he needs one at the weigh-in or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's how the relationship. I think that's how. I think the back of his jersey says All Star and mine says Grunt. I think that's how it
Underdog,
works out.
right? Underdog.
Underdog. Yeah.
Well, Marsh Fishing is convinced that he's going to see you at the 2025 Classic.
Well, if Marsh Fishing, if I make the 2025 Classic, come see me. Remind me of this conversation, and I don't care what it is—a boat ride, a backstage pass. I'll get you whatever whatever you want for the good vibes that you're putting out there, man. I appreciate that.
Right. Stephanie did want to know, what's your go-to bait and setup? What's your go-to? I don't know. Need one more keeper. Fill out a limit. What's your what rod you reaching for? Obviously, it's all conditional, but just in general.
All conditional. I'm gonna have to give you two because I'm that way. So one's gonna be a jerk bait, and the other one's gonna be a shaky head on 8-pound test line, 8 to 10, depending on if I'm putting in a brush pile or if I'm going open water. But you give me those two tools, I think I could fish the entire elite season with those two tools.
Nice.
8-ounce shaky head, 7-inch worm, green pumpkin. It doesn't matter what color as long as it's green pumpkin.
You throw those both on spinning rods or
spinning rod? Yeah, it's a spinning rod guy. I years ago, obviously, I tried the bait caster thing because it's, that's what you want. But I found that you can actually work the bait a lot better. Open spool, let it fall, tumble the way it needs to tumble, spiral down. Those things like that there's an advantage to having a spinning rod on that shaky head. Jerk bait, I can do bait caster on a jerk bait. 12-pound. I'm more of a 12-pound test line guy.
Yeah, might need a few packs of smokes for Seth in your back compartment in case he runs out.
Yeah.
Andrew wants to know, any bait sponsors for next year? Partners?
No. Listen, I was with Pradco for a couple years there, and they were extremely great to me. Extremely great. And it may have been the dumbest decision I made in my entire life not to re-sign with Pradco. It might have been. But what I found is it's very hard. I'm a very loyal person, and I would expect of myself the same thing I would expect from them to me. And me knowing that I was going to go into the bait business and I was going to have to promote all these different baits and brands, I felt like it was going to muddy the water. So I stepped away from that. And so I don't have any baits or anything of that nature. Now, with that being said, what happened last year was one of my many things that happened negative is I bought when Lucky Strike went through their sell, I bought basically their warehouse out. Okay. And when that process happened, I had told Pradco that I wasn't going to sign with them because I knew I was going there. Right. And then the owner of Lucky Strike came to me and said, "Hey, man, like, I want to make you an offer. You're going to be selling all this Lucky Strike. Why don't we co-brand, co-market?" It sounded good. And I said, no. I said, "Well, make me an offer I can't refuse." And he absolutely made me an offer that I could not refuse. And so I had signed with Lucky Strike after that, going against my gut feeling because I saw the dollar numbers that I saw. Come to find out, the guy was a fraud, and he wrote me 2 major hot checks that bounced. And last thing I knew, he got arrested and thrown in prison for fraud. So, like, I never got paid a penny. I lost this multi six figure a year income for the 5-year contract. Like, it was a I went out there on tour thinking that I had everything covered, and next thing you know, that check bounces and the man goes to prison. So wasn't pretty. Now, with that being said, I will never speak against Lucky Strike because Toby Keith since then has come in and bought the company, and he's rebuilding. They're doing what their thing is. This is a different group of people that actually own it now and are operating it now.
Still rocking the Alpha Angler rods.
Yeah, still working the Alpha Angler rods. Yeah.
Nice.
We actually developed a heavier flipping rod, so they got like a 2.0 version, and I got to use that when I was down in Florida at the end of the year. Man, it is awesome. So I don't know if you guys do much, heavier flipping or punching, but that rod it's a bad dude. Yeah, man, it's exciting. It is exciting. It's all about the balance, man. They got it built, the balance really, really, really well.
Yeah, I'm a bit firm believer in balance. That's important for rods more than a lot of other things. Jared says Zilla 2.0. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the mag hitter, and I don't know that they rebranded it as 2.0 or not. And it's got such a niche thing, and to go into the winter the way we did, I don't think they've done a lot of marketing on it yet. But no, it's not the Zilla 2.0. It's the mag hitter 2.0, which they probably just named the mag hitter.
So you said you like jerk baits. What is there one jerk bait, or do you got two or three that are in your heavy rotation? Or we lost the volume. Can't hear you. Did it die? Gotta do some phone.
Yep, you there?
Yeah, I got you now.
Yep, headset's died on me. Talk to the headset. Trash. So, jerkbait colors. Yeah, man, I keep it really simple. I do like a table rock, shad. You know, with the purple back. I do a natural color, and I do the OB shad, mega bass. It's got a translucent color, kind of a gold side. Then the underbelly is orange. I love the orange in the wintertime. I think that a lot of the fish that you see, their gills are really bright red and orange in the wintertime. I think it reflects a lot of that same kind of brightness. I don't know exactly how the bass see it, but to me it stands out a lot like that. So I get a lot of confidence in. So mainly, to be honest with you, those two colors. And my third one would probably just be, you know, a bright white jerkbait would probably be my third color option.
A lot of Megabass 110s, you said? Sounds like that's
yeah, I'm a Megabass 110 plus one. A lot of times, depending on if I'm in timber or not in timber. A lot of times the plus one has nothing to do with wanting to get deep, but it bounces off limbs. There may be a bass that's sitting right next to the tree itself, and let's say it's 4 foot down, and there's another limb that's 5 foot 6 feet beyond. Well, if you just put a regular 110 there and cast over it, you don't have room to twitch and get down to that fish. So you need it to kind of come straight down. So the plus one a lot of times allows it to do on that first pull, just to go, you know, get down to where you need it to be. And so most of the time at this time of year, I'm throwing a plus one in the wintertime.
Yeah, I've kind of grown, whether it's the Megabass or the Rerange, like my go-to is to usually start with the plus one or the MR, like the deeper one, most of the time myself. Like, I don't know, I feel like I got a lot of regular depth jerkbaits that don't get much love, and I'm using the plus one style all the time now.
Now, what's unique though is like, and I haven't fished Hartwell in the winter or anything like that, but when you start getting into Hartwell, the time of year that we're going and into the summer, a plus one, unless they're really deep, gives those fish too much time to look at it. They're able to come up and observe it too much. And so you don't even want to throw a plus one, even though those fish are 20 foot below the surface, because you want them to have something that's flashing up higher. And, you know, I've made a lot of mistakes trying to work a lot of fish. I've got a lot of fish come up and look, and I spend time and time and time, and I extend my cast and time, and I just can't get them to lick it, can't let them to eat it. And you find that you just need to throw and keep it above them a lot higher, move it a lot faster, and then make the commitment to come up 20 feet and smoke it. So, you know, what we're talking about is not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily translate in every body of water. But so I'm mainly speaking of, you know, my part of the world.
Yeah, when you're looking at bait chasing fish, right? Like you almost want the shallower jerkbait because that's almost a wake or a topwater where they're trapping it against the surface almost, versus like if you're bringing it halfway down, then it's like they don't really feel like they've got an advantage, maybe, or it kind of depends for sure.
I think it goes back to a lot of KVD's theory on spinner baits and speed and keeping things up and not, you know, keeping where the flash versus being able to see the silhouette of the body. And I think all that stuff comes in to play a lot more on jerk baits on those kind of bodies of water.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. You got any old school balsa you like to rotate in, or do you not dabble with that kind of stuff?
You know, no, to be honest with you. I mean, I do have some. I'm not much of a shallow cranker, not that I don't. do it. I love the Black Label balsa stuff.
Good stuff.
And that's probably what I lean more to, but I don't have any of the old school stuff. I just never had it. My dad had it, and I never even, I never got really into it. So,
Colby wants to know, you throw a swim jig much? And what do you like, a big box brand or a custom, or what kind of swim jigs do you like?
most of the swim jigs I throw right now are just I just custom stuff. I throw an Archie jig a lot that basically hand poured one of the guys that was working for me, and we made some green pump, more brown colored one. It was more of a brown jig, and I made a black and blue jig, and I made a white jig. And so those are the 3 jigs that I bring with me. I've got away from how I used to throw a football jig a lot locally, and I probably need to make sure I bring those back with me, because like a Toledo bend could be a Toledo, and it could happen there. And back in those days, in that time of year, I would love to throw a green jig, and I'd make sure that had the small trace of orange in the skirt. And I like that because you can pull the orange out if you don't. But sometimes, man, it's weird how that little bit of orange in the winter time and early spring can get you a bite over just a straight green pumpkin. But yeah, swim jig wise, it's just a kind of a standard jig. I mean, I got some good friends that make some good jigs, but I don't know. I'll probably have another 2 years supply of the jigs that we've made. So
there you go. Nothing wrong with that. Speaking of football jigs, do you share the disdain for the Carolina rig that your buddy Panger does?
No, what's funny about that is I used to do really well with a Carolina rig, really well. And that's when I used to do a lot of bottom dragging. So I'd throw a jig or a Carolina rig quite a bit. It was the jig first, but then when I felt like they were suspended, I'd throw a Carolina rig. Now, with that being said, as I began to fish more regionally and nationally, I really didn't have the time to throw it, if you will. And somehow during this time period over the years, I transferred into more of a moving bait power fisherman, more of a jerkbait guy, more of a spinnerbait, more of a chatterbait guy. And when I do slow down, it's flipping or it's shaky heading. So with that being said, I have made a mental note to make the reemergence of the Carolina rig and make sure it's in my boat next year and throw it in some certain situations when I need to slow down. If I feel like I'm skilled enough in the open water scenario, when I know I'm around fish, I know they're in that area and I can't see anymore, I can't catch them, I need to make sure that I spend a moment and drag that Carolina rig down there where I can't see it, because that's where the fish are at. They're either gone or they're down at the bottom. So I need to prove that scenario out. And you can cover so much more water with the Carolina rig, and you can feel the bottom a lot better. You hardly lose fish. It's an extremely good tool. We make fun of it, right? Just like the sissy or rod or whatever with the shaky head. But when it comes down to it, I've caught one more money off of that little shaky head. Multiple tournaments, I've caught a 17-pound bag with a chatterbait in the springtime, and then I beat them up so good, I'm like, well, I'll go back behind myself with a shaky head and then cold every fish I had out at the same area. I enjoy the power fishing side of it, but you got to have a couple follow-up baits. And let's face it, when you're anything deeper than 10 foot, but especially in the 15 to 25 range, that Carolina rig is going to get down there and it's going to finessely float behind, but you can get down there with an 1.5 ounce weight and cover water way more than you could with a shaky head. So that's kind of out of the picture.
Quick mention that only a couple days left to use the December code at Omnia if you want to get something. If you didn't get everything you wanted in your stocking and under the tree and you want a little self-gifting for Christmas, there's the code for December. And then obviously the Arsenal fishing code. So Ray Cates, co-angler, champ, Bass Nation guy, he looks like he's already qualified for the November Bass Nation National Championship in 2024. Any tips for him in November as a co on Grand?
Yeah. Put a buzzbait on and don't stop. Don't put it down. And if you do, then pick up a jig and just that's it. You may only get, I don't know if they're weighing in 3 fish instead of 5, but if so, like, they can be 5-pounders. You can get 3 bites in a day. And listen, they can come from anywhere in the water. Like, you don't have to necessarily throw, if your boater's got you blocked off and he's got this point, he's got 100 fish found at the point, and he's throwing at it. Those fish in November can go from 0 foot to I've caught them 40 foot deep, 45 foot deep in that time of year from September to November, and they will spread out in the water column everywhere, and they will, begin to feed up. So like that buzz bait, if you want to spook, you know what I mean, go ahead. But I mean, for covering water, and you're in the back of the boat, and you don't have control over the speed of the boat, man, a buzz bait, and if he gets around docks or something like that, you can then throw a jig. And you can throw it, and dude, to be honest with you, 3/4 ounce jig. Don't play if you're behind a boater and he's moving the boat. You're not going to have control over the presentation of your bait. So like most of the time, if your boater is flipping a 1/4 ounce jig or something like that, like he's already given the ones that are feeding a chance to feed. Now you got to go for the reaction bite. So put a daggum 3/4 ounce jig on them, give them the pop and hop, and stroke some bass out behind him, freak the boater out. I mean, nothing's more frustrating than the guy behind you throwing a big old bait and catching giants.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, a bunch of the open guys made hay with 3/4 ounce jigs this year for sure. Cool. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on, John. Good stuff. I think we covered a lot of ground. We got some nuts and bolts fishing. We talked some real life stuff. We talked about your plans for next year. And I think people are excited to follow along and see how this unfolds.
Man, I can't thank you enough for letting me get out of my shell. No more hiding in the dark. No more complaining to myself about everything that's going on. And I can just come out and crown myself the greatest underdog. And I can do it on HellaBass live. What's better than that?
Yeah, appreciate it. And if you guys didn't get all your questions answered today, he'll be on with Tin Horse Monty next week with Gabe. So, yeah, appreciate it. We're gonna go live here in about 7 minutes on the members. So if you guys are members, hop back on. There's still time to join if you'd like. You just hit the hide chat button. There's a little join button if anybody's interested in hopping on for that. But excited to see you back and excited about things, John. And I think there's a bunch of people in chat rooting for you in 2024. So
I appreciate it, Rich, man. I need it. I really do. I'm not too big, bad, and bold not to tell you guys I need the support, and I love every minute of it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, lots of positive comments here. Feel free. You can. I'm sure John will take all those positive comments over on Instagram and Facebook. I think everything is John Soukup Fishing, right? Pretty much on Instagram.
John Soukup Fishing. A lot of times, John Soukup Fishing Pro. I've had some pages that have been hacked and stuff, so I had to go from John Soukup to John Soukup Fishing to John Soukup Fishing Pro. But if there are some haters on here, I got a place where they can shove it. I mean, I'm about embracing the haters right now. I've had some guys.
I always say, John, engagement is engagement. If they're going to take the time, it's good for your socials. Comments are comments. The algorithm doesn't know whether they're being mean or positive. So you can
I think it does, and I think the algorithm loves it.
Accept the engagement.
Yeah. I made a post releasing a 10-pounder about a week ago. It's got like 200,000 views on it, and it's just me releasing a 10-pounder in slow mode. And the fish does we got the camera underwater and above the water at the same time, and we see the fish jump and go out of the water and do a backflip and land. And I just thought it was the coolest release that we've ever got on camera. And it's a 10-pounder, by the way. And all I got was haters. I even had the vegans coming after me, picking on me, literally a vegan group, about the way I was holding the fish, releasing the fish. And you know what? With my renewed mentality now, like before last year, I would have just deleted the people, blocked people, go on. And now, honestly, I'm in a better place. I'm able to laugh at it, have fun. And that's just what we're going to do with this season when it comes to the negativity, because it's out there.
Well, as always here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less.